While researching mud flood resets, I started looking into the Panama Canal after noticing a huge canal was already on the enormous 1587 planisphere by the cartographer Monte, which I originally mistook for the Panama Canal, even though it was a little further north of the Panama Bay in Nicaragua. On WikiLeaks, believe it or not, we find some curious statements about the building of the Panama Canal. First, it's important to notice the Panama Canal is a 51-mile-long artificial waterway in Panama. We'll get back to this vital distance later. It was started by France in 1881, and the United States took over the project and opened the canal August 15, 1914. One of the largest and most difficult engineering projects undertaken, the Panama Canal shortcut greatly reduced the time for ships to travel between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, enabling them to avoid the lengthy, hazardous Cape Horn route around the southernmost tip of South America, and probably to stop them from finding the passage through the ice wall between the Masonic Pillars of Hercules right there. But that's none of my business. What intrigued me were the statements that the earliest record related to a canal across the Isthmus of Panama was in 1534, when Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor Penguin and King of Spain, ordered a survey for a route through the Americas in order to ease the voyage for ships traveling between Spain and Peru. And then 250 years later, in 1788, Thomas Jefferson, the Minister of France, suggested that the Spanish should build the Panama Canal, since they controlled the colonies where it would be built. But here's the strange thing, Thomas. 250 years earlier, in 1537, just 3 years after the Holy Roman Emperor Penguin Charles V ordered a survey of where to build a canal, the cartographers Munster and Granaeus produced a world map with a huge sailing canal right through Nicaragua. We can see it there plain as day and drawn to exaggeration to show the way clearly. Then, in 1548, Italian cartographer Gastaldi decides to draw the one and only border on his entire map right there through Nicaragua, in the same exact place and canal shape as Monte's 1587 planisphere map. Or is that a canal? In 1583, the accomplished artist and renowned cartographer of dozens of world maps, Hondius, makes this drawing, but in true Masonic fashion, the details are in what we don't see: a huge sailing canal right there through Nicaragua. "1587 Monte, same place." In 1601, Vasco had mapped a sailing canal clearly drawn in the same place, right there through Nicaragua, just west of the Panama Bay. The strange thing is, I went through dozens of maps from as far back as the early 1500s to the early 1700s, and while none of them show a canal all the way through Nicaragua, all of them show a very clear large sailing river in the exact same shape and same place, from the Atlantic Gulf of Mexico all the way across Nicaragua, ending in a huge lake with a smaller lake on its left west side near the Pacific Ocean coast, with a giant volcano located in the middle of it. It was clearly well known since the early 1500s and large enough to sail into from the Atlantic. So why was this spot not an obvious choice for a canal instead of Panama, if in fact it wasn't already one? That double lake and volcano is still there in Nicaragua today, in the exact same place. And remember how the Panama Canal is 51 miles of artificial canal? Well, this lake sits 12 miles from the Pacific Ocean coast, and the smaller lake is even closer. But something terrible clearly happened after the early 1700s, which researchers are calling the mud flood or Great Reset, because today there is no river to be found leading from the Atlantic Gulf of Mexico to that lake. Its mighty outline is still there. And what the hell is a city like San Francisco, named after the great St. Francis, doing out in the middle of the jungle if it wasn't once a bustling port city?